turn to our attorney, and what is the, is this in order or is this not?
What I believe we have is a request to place an item on work session agenda. That's the essence of Ms. Covenant's request. In the council's regulations and rules of order under work session meetings, it says the council may conduct work session meetings on matters which are expected to come before the council for formal action at a regular meeting or otherwise need study by the council. The next sentence says items to be considered will be placed on the agenda by the council president. So I think that is the sentence that determines what goes on a work session agenda. Then it says when the work session agenda is to be distributed, and it's an informal session. So I think that is what is controlling as far as what will be on the work session agenda for any day. It's what the president of the council puts on the agenda.
Okay, so then we need to, then this motion is not in order for tonight.
I think if it's voted on, whatever the result of the vote, it still does not overwhelm what is in the council's rules of order that the council president determines the agenda for the work session.
Mr. Wilbur?
Okay.
If I may, the standing rules of order do not prohibit the placing of something on the work session agenda from being discussed at a legislative session. We have often made that motion here. It does require that it be submitted in writing, brought it in writing. And there are limits on the council president's placement of things on the agenda, because it states that, if you'll bear with me just a moment, it's in the standing rules of order work session meetings, that in developing these agendas,
What page are you on?
I'm looking for it, if you'll hold on just a moment. Maybe further up in the rules than I have here. Okay. The mayor, I'm on page 3, letter C. The mayor, a member of the council, or a member of the public may request that an item be placed upon the agenda for a council meeting, provided such request is made in writing prior to the established deadlines. Well, this is well ahead of the deadline and it's in writing. With a copy to the city clerk, I brought one. Will acknowledge receipt of the request, or only matters of an emergency or urgent nature may be added to the agenda after those deadlines. And then in D, it says the council president shall place upon the agenda of the council meeting any item which is legal, constitutional, and proper for the council to consider. I realize proper is a very vague term. On the other hand, in the context of legal, constitutional, it typically would mean whether or not council should be hearing such things. Well, council hears legislation. Provided, however, that the council may reasonably defer a requested agenda item until a future meeting of the council in order to secure full attendance by council members, that's one exception. To afford the public ample opportunity to appear and observe the council's consideration of such agenda item, that's a second exception. Or to secure the input of the city staff, which is a third exception. So other than those 3 exceptions, the council rules of order say shall place on the agenda. So I'm simply using the form of an auxiliary or subsidiary motion in order to perform that task.
Question I would ask, has this met the time deadlines?
Well, since I'm requesting it for October 4th, I'm more than willing to
that should meet the time deadlines, right? trying to reconcile that language with the language that I was looking at that says the council president controls the agenda on the work sessions.
The council president
With
still
what
would set the
Councilwoman
date.
Cohen has added, would you like an additional recess for 5
No,
minutes?
why
Okay.
don't we do this, just to move forward here. The motion has been made to place it on the work session agenda for October. So I would go forward with that vote, see where that goes. I would take
You
the
would
vote.
need a second.
Right. There is a motion on the floor, and if you would repeat your motion, please.
Sure. As I said, I brought it in writing for city clerk's convenience as well as council members' consideration. Thank you. I move that the 2010 Safe Streets Neighborhood Legislative Package be placed on the Salisbury City Council work session agenda scheduled for October 4, 2010, 4:30 p.m. for consideration and discussion by the City Council, which is a meeting open to the public and which will be held after a public input meeting scheduled for September 15, 2010 at 6:30 p.m. by council members Campbell and Cohen in an effort to compromise with Council President Smith's requirements for considering the legislation.
I will second the motion.
Okay, the motion has been made. This is a subsidiary motion made by Councilwoman Cohen. It has been seconded by Councilwoman Campbell. Are there questions? Mrs. Shields?
Yes. As everyone knows, I don't agree with the legislation at this time because I feel that it has not been inclusive enough. And when I say inclusive enough, when you are making decisions on a segment of the population and they have not had any input in the legislation and you have not done any outreach to these folks who may be displaced or who this law is going to affect, which are families and children. I don't think there was any quality in when you were doing this ordinance because you didn't have all the players at the table. You did this ordinance. I can understand people with crime. I can understand people with the Safe Street Initiative. I understand all of that. But I don't believe you can legislate people's behavior. And I think when you're putting a segment of the population against another set of citizens, and that's what it's perceived like. Maybe it's not like that. Maybe some citizens just want a safe street. I understand that. But all the players were not at the table. And until that happens, you can have all the meetings you want here in this chambers, but until you go into the rental community, the senior citizens who are going to be affected, explain what this legislation is going to do, Pemberton, the water sides, those kind of populations, you need to talk to everyone, the renters and the homeowners. Now, in this audience tonight, I feel that most of everyone here may be the majority homeowners, but I don't see any. Maybe some renters are in here. But we need to bring everybody to the table before I feel that this legislation was equal and fair. I have also given this ordinance to several other people in the community, and